Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 13, Episode 23. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Thanks for being back with us here this Monday, Steelers Nation. Unfortunately, no victory Monday today as the Pittsburgh Steelers come off their first loss of the season, 17-14, to the New England Patriots Sunday at Acrisure Stadium, the home opener. And oh boy, Dave, the Twitter machine is angry today.
You need to score more than 14 points to win games in the NFL. Good night, folks.
See you Thursday for the Browns game.
Yeah, can that be it, or do we need to do more?
I think a little bit more maybe required.
Okay. And just full disclosure here, I have just only quickly zoomed through the offensive all 22, have not even looked at the defensive all 22 just yet. So we're going completely off of TV tape and for the most part, and I don't even think you've touched the all 22 yet, have you?
Nope. But zooming through the offense is probably a good strategy. Just watch it very quickly, very shortly, and burn the tape and move on. That seems to be the theme.
Yeah. Where shall we beginneth?
Do you want to start with Tomlin, or do you want to start with recapping the game, or do you want to kind of try to mix in both as we talk about what's happened over the last 24 hours?
Yeah, let's get a quickly fly through all, at least the injury part and kind of the main things that Tomlin had to say both last night and Monday morning, and then we'll recap some more stuff that he said later on in the show after we get through the game.
Okay, I mean, Tomlin was pretty, general speaking about the game, and I'm sure he hasn't, he's gotten to go through the game some, but it's not the typical Tomlin Tuesday where there's a bit more of a buffer and time to review. Obviously, Tomlin moving his press conference to Monday. That's why this podcast coming out later. Wanted to wait until after Tomlin spoke a day early because of the Thursday night game coming up against the Cleveland Browns. The way that I wrote last night is the way you can just probably describe a lot of football games. 90% of a football game is pretty close, back and forth, each team making a couple plays, but not a lot of separation between the two teams. The other 10% is generally what decides who wins and who loses. And that's essentially what Mike Tomlin said, saying the big splash weighty plays all went in New England's favor, whether you're talking about the muff punt that Gunnar Olszewski had late in the third quarter there, whether you're talking about the great catch that Nelson Aguilar had over Ahkello Witherspoon at the end of the first half. All the big splash, weighty plays, the stuff on the highlight reel went in New England's favor. They won that last 10%, and that's why they won this game.
And look, as bad as this team played offensively, you really can, unfortunately, boil it down to a couple big plays in the game. Well, actually, maybe even three. The dropped interception there, because sure. If you don't drop that interception, then the punt doesn't happen right after it. And but you can get into hypotheticals all you want. But the touchdown late in the first half, boy, what a crusher! And you hate to climb on Ahkello Witherspoon too terribly much for that play, because in essence, it was good coverage, but he didn't go up and, he didn't high point that ball and essentially got himself mossed. And, the other teams paid to play as well too. And, they sometimes the other team will make the play in the weighty moment of a game. And that was a big play there with things winding down, obviously, in the first half. And then, not getting almost really the give me interception there by Cameron Sutton. The punt followed not too long after that. And Mike Tomlin did a good job of highlighting that during this press conference on Monday about so many things went wrong on that, other than doinking it off of his face mask there. It's Gunner's responsibility to count up the players and make sure you have enough on the field, and they didn't, and that let that Gunner on the far side run free. Boy, it looked like there's a certain still shot even on the TV tape, and it's hard to do with TV tape. But there's a shot there where it looks like he's the only guy on the field, on that play running down to cover that. Obviously, returner's main job is what?
Secure the football.
Yeah, secure and catch the football, and he didn't, and that obviously led to a super short field for them, and they did what teams are supposed to do, and that's cash it in with a touchdown there. So their 2 touchdowns, one came off of a muff punt, and the other off of a very, very nice play by the wide receiver late in the first half there. And yeah, there was a lot else that went wrong in this game, but unfortunately, those 2 plays really get magnified. Well, you called it, man. A lot of one possession games, and the Steelers are normally on the right, have been on the right side of these. They were a blocked extra point from being on the wrong side of one in week 1, and they were definitely on the wrong side of the 1-score game on Sunday against the Patriots.
Over 2020 and 2021, no team played in as many one-possession games as the Pittsburgh Steelers, or no team at least won as many such games. Pittsburgh 15-4-1 over that span. They're 1-1, 2 games into the year. My projection was that they'd be 500 in one-possession games this year, and so far they are. We'll see how it goes the rest of the way. But you're right, it was a really good play by Nelson Aguilar, but it was really poor finish by Kella Witherspoon. And he was in such great positioning, and it was 3rd down, 30 seconds left, get a stop there. You go into the half and you're doing all right. And, I appreciate Witherspoon's honesty. He basically said, I didn't expect the guy to jump. He was a small guy, but small guys jump. Big guys don't always have to jump. Small guys certainly always have to jump. So I can respect Witherspoon's, candor on that. But man, you got to know the situation. You got to be able to finish that better. And it's been a tough 2 weeks to start the year for Kella Witherspoon.
Yeah, look, and he gave up a couple of catches in this game, but yep. none more important than that one. And he was honest about it and said, I was just going to try to cradle that. And there's a teaching moment in there, and unfortunately, it's a very expensive one that goes along with it. Like I said, the coverage, everything up until the ball arrives, he really did a good job on, but. You're going to have to learn from that and move on. But huge play in the game, especially when it looked like you were kind of holding serve, if you will, and your offense not playing well. And as we said ahead of this season started, with the 2022 Steelers, you're probably going to have to rely a lot on your special teams and your defense, to make things happen to win some of these games. And in games like this one against the Patriots, you got to be pretty damn perfect in those other 2 phases there, if you will, if you're going to win some of these games. Because if you only give up 17 points, remember Keith Butler, that was his magic number, wasn't it? Yep. 16 or 17 points. If you only give up 16 or 17 points, you're going to win a large majority of your games. Well, probably going to have to lower that number down a little bit here as we move forward here. And once again, a lot more happened in this game other than those 2 plays, but they certainly get magnified overall as low of a scoring game as this was, and in context of the entire game.
Sure, because you take those 2 plays out for just a moment. Everything else was pretty close, pretty competitive. I think maybe overall the Patriots were the better team, but it was still close and a lot of back and forth in this game. But you factor in the splash plays, the way he plays. New England made them. Pittsburgh did not. Pittsburgh did not win the turnover battle when they went +5 in week 1. It's really hard to win whenever you don't get those splash plays. You don't get the pass rush that they had in week 1, those elements that existed against the Bengals did not exist against the Patriots. And again, ultimately that last 10% goes to New England. And so that's really the difference in a lot of games, and certainly was the difference last night or yesterday afternoon. Let's see. On the offensive side of the football, which is more offensive than offensive, Mike Tomlin asked about the Steelers' lack of aggression. That's really one of the top topics today about the Steelers' offense right now. Why are there not enough downfield and deep shots? And Mike Tomlin did admit that this Trubisky, the Steelers' offense, could and probably should take some more shots downfield, but also cautioned that it's dictated by coverage and what defenses do and things like that. The Patriots talking quite a bit how they wanted to force the check down, weren't trying to get beat deep and things like that. But the all-22, I know you've gone through it a little bit more than I have, and what's out there is not pretty.
Yeah, there were opportunities, not so much in the middle of the field, I don't think, but there were opportunities, I think, in this game for Mitch Trubisky to attempt to push the football down the field. I think kind of that maybe that next to last possession, the play, I believe, that doinked off of, I think it was the one that doinked off of Freiermuth. You got Deontay Johnson on the outside, pushing vertically down the sideline there. You had to look at it about 8 more times, but there might have been an opportunity to throw that ball up and let Deontay go get it. Because once Deontay got even with that defensive back on that side, he left him. But it was a little bit ways down the field there. I think it was more of a kind of a cover 3 type situation there. Definitely a single high safety in that instance, and that safety wasn't going to get over to that side. I'll tell you one quarterback who would have made that throw. Ben Roethlisberger probably would have made that throw. I think it was a 3rd and 7 or 3rd and 8 situation there, the next to last possession before the first half ended. There was also an instant early in the game as well, too, on the play that George Pickens went in motion there and then kind of ran that rail wheel. And I mean, the route that was already on that other side had already done its job and kind of conflicted, the defensive backs on that side. And there was an opportunity, I think, to put that one up top to George Pickens running along the sideline. I don't know necessarily if he would have scored. Maybe he would have, but I mean, that would have been a big gainer right there. Look, this team attempted 4 passes of 20 yards or longer in this game. One of them was a Hail Mary to close out the first half. So I don't, hard to kind of count that one. And the only one that they completed was kind of late in the first half to Pickens over to the right sideline, sort of in a situation there where once again the Patriots are saying you're not gonna beat us over the top for a home run in this situation here. So one explosive play in total in this game. You're not going to win a lot of games doing that. If you're going to try to win games with 1 or 2 explosive plays, you better make some play. You better take the ball away 3 or 4 times on defense. You better be dead solid, perfect on special teams, and you better be able to run the football. So I mean, look, I talked before this podcast about before this game on that podcast about being concerned about, this team being able to move the football and score points. And they're going to have to figure out a way to move the ball in chunks, because even though there was a 13 play, 14 play drive that they had that for their first field goal, I think
16 plays, 48 yards.
Yeah. How many 16 play drives go just 48 yards?
Last one was 2014.
Oh, Lord. Well, regardless, at least you possess the football that long. But I think once again, regardless of how much of this stuff you clear out, and there's a lot of other stuff that's not Mitch's fault that was wrong in this tape, I think we'll find. And that's not absolving Mitch Trubisky any of this. But even if you start cleaning up a lot of that other noise, if you will, I still think it's going to be a lot to ask this offense to drive 75 yards down the field in 13, 12, 13, 14 play drives. So you better figure out a way to get chunks, man, because I have simplified football for everyone. you better win the turnover and explosive play battle by 2 or more every game. There you go. Good night. Thanks for coming.
The short podcast today.
Yeah. And they just look like they're going to struggle to make explosive plays, and there's going to be very few of these catch short run longs. I think it's a lot to ask out of the running game to provide any explosive plays that way. So you have, whether even if teams are trying, and I think you'll see this as well too. The Patriots did do their best to try to keep everything in front of them. A lot of middle of the field safeties, either cover 1 or cover 3, almost daring you to throw 50-50 balls, if you will, or take lower percentage type of shots. But you better figure out a way to do it overall. Look, you had receivers down the field on a Yankee route, and Deontay and Chase Claypool almost running into each other. One other instance that I saw, and I think it ended up being a dump off on the play. But if you look over to the right side, you got 2 wide receivers.
Who was that? Could you tell who the players were?
I think it was Claypool and Deontay Johnson.
Okay. Because when I saw that photo, and at first I went, because you had it circled, and I went, I don't know what's weird about that. Then I realized there were 2 people there. You couldn't even tell that there were 2 receivers there initially. So certainly there were, and that happened last week too. There's been some route concepts that have been way too mucked up.
That's not the way you draw it up, I don't think, having 2 people in one holding hands on one side of the field over there, if you will. So, and that's why it's you got to be real cautious about making hard declarations off of the TV tape, because you don't get to see a lot of the coverages or what happens down the field and where a safety is and all like that on top of it. So, yeah, I mean, does Mitch Trubisky need to be more aggressive down the field? The short answer to that's yes. Do they have to be more spot on with their assignments on top of everything else? Yes. The blueprint's out on them right now. It's really been that for a while right now. Don't get beat over the top against the Steelers,
Right.
And they're going to continue to see a lot of teams play a middle of the field safety on them, either cover 1 or cover 3, and see if the Steelers are willing to take shots in that.
I think you laid that out really, really well. I agree with everything that you said there, Dave. And I think we're both going to try to be a little less reactionary than I think most people will be, because it is just one game, and we're not going to gloss over the problems this team very clearly has. But I don't think either of us are calling for firings and mass benchings and all that kind of fodder that you're probably going to get elsewhere, at least before watching the tape thoroughly ahead of Thursday's game. It's just the thing that gets me.
Even if we all took a stand right now, we're not going to the game or not watching the game unless Matt Canada's fired, or Mitch Trubisky's benched. None of that's going to happen, at least right now. And even if they fired Matt Canada today, tomorrow, next week, I mean, they're not going to go outside and bring someone else in. You're just going to turn this thing over to Mike Sullivan. You just don't, and it's not like you had the time during the week to install a whole bunch of new plays and all like that kind of stuff there. So, you might as well just grab a handle and get ready for the ride.
Right. I feel like you were going to say enjoy the ride, but enjoy is definitely not the word to use right now. It's just what gets me is every year we say, well, it can't get worse. I mean, it has to get better, right? And it's worse somehow this year than last year. Through 2 games, this team has 2 offensive touchdowns. They had 3 last year through 2 games. Their yards per play is a half yard lower than what it was all of last year. The same ills, generally speaking, continue. The short pass game, the run game that isn't as efficient and as effective as it needs to be, lacking the downfield plays. And, it's kind of the new year, same stuff, same issues. And it's not even like the offensive line hasn't been as bad as we thought it would be, especially in pass pro. I think they've held up reasonably well against, I think 2 pretty good fronts in the Bengals and the Patriots. The run game certainly can be better in pass pro. It's had its, moments where it's not been good enough, but it's not like the O-line's getting killed. And yet this offense still really struggles to do anything with its talented group of receivers. George Pickens, hyped them up all summer. He's got 2 catches for 26 yards 2 games into his career. Every week they talk about we got to get Pickens involved more. We got to get him the ball, and it's the same story. So, what's going to change is the question.
Man, and offensive line right now at this point, at least after 2 games, has really become, to the side burner, if you will. Look, they didn't run the football great by any stretch of the imagination in totality on Sunday, but they did have, situationally on how we measure successful runs based on down and distances and all. They did a good job on it. It was like what I put up 60, 68, 69%, something right around in there, and anything over, 55% is pretty good when it comes to success rates overall. Now, there obviously weren't any explosive plays in any of that. And obviously a couple of the successful runs were short yardage runs, but there's a totality that goes along with that. People say, I don't see how you can call a 1 yard run successful. Well, that 1 yard run comes on 3rd and 1. You damn right it's successful, but I thought overall the offensive line did the job in the running game and the pass protection. I mean, there were obviously some hiccups in there, but that's not the main focus of why they lost this game.
Mm-hmm. As we kind of saw during the game, and as I know you tweeted out a couple times going through the all-22, Najee Harris certainly missed some holes. He was really bounce happy in this game, which is pretty atypical for him. He was very much not getting downhill, not putting his foot in the ground, and was trying to run outside and around guys more than what we're used to. I don't know if that's anything related to health. I thought overall, I mean, he flashed and had that great check down where he stiff arms a guy and hurdles another. I mean, it felt like he looked generally healthy, but the overall decision-making felt strange in this game.
I tell you, he looked a lot healthier than what I thought he would look in this game. I mean, he looked 9 times healthier in this game than I thought he would look. But, man, you got to be careful here. We're going to get some hate mail for knocking on Najee, so we better move this portion of the show along. But even Trey Essex, former Steelers offensive lineman, pointed that out first thing this morning. I think Josh Carney's found a clip or two of it as well, of him not properly, or not having great vision or making bad decisions with the football in his hand here. But even so, overall, once again, like I said, the running game was well over 55% in this game, and in a close game like this, low scoring, that's one factor that you need to have in place in order to win a football game like this.
What was Harris's success rate? Because the overall numbers don't look too good. 15 carries, 49 yards, long of 8. I imagine his success rate was probably decent, 50%. I'm guessing if they were like 61% for the day, but still looking for more than that, of course.
Right. I don't have it broken down by runner. I got sidetracked.
Because I know Watt had his on 3rd and 1. Gunner had an end around that went for 18. But I'm just curious if you isolate just maybe the running backs or even just Najee, what that number would be.
Yeah, hold on just a minute here, and I'll sort this out real quick for you here.
It's still looking for more, I think, from that run game. And again, Harris, if he gets downhill, gets vertical more often, you probably see more success. There was that one play that you pointed out that Trey Essex saw in him. I think it was the first run of the game, him bouncing it when there's a clear hole. It's a man block scheme, duo block, hit the hole, in that B gap, and he just bounces outside and goes nowhere.
Looks like 9 successful runs for him
on 15 carries. I mean, that's going to be a good rate. It's going to be 60%, so right in line with the team average. But that's the whole debate of what do you value more, 15 for 49 versus you get the 60% run success rate, long of 8. There's all these stats, of course, need some context.
Yeah, they do. And within that, how many of these came on 1st and 10? 1, it looks like 2, 3, looks like 4 of them came on 1st and 10.
But how long were those runs? I'm just curious.
Yeah, I mean, not very long. I mean, his longest run of the day was what? Was it 8 yards?
Right.
Yeah.
What do you have numbers on what those gains were? They like 3 or 4 yard gains on first down?
And anything on 1st and 10 over 4.5 is a successful run. So he had a run of 5, he had a run of 6, he had a run of 8, and a run of 5 that were successful there. But once again, we're going back to it. Sure would be nice to pop one for 28 to 33, 38 yards. You know what I'm saying? And he's just that's not who he is.
And it felt like they didn't. Not that you can take it away entirely, but they didn't really gain traction in the run game until the Patriots lost temporarily some of their top run guys. Kyle Duggar missed, I think, the second half of this game. Juwan Bentley missed some time in this game. That's when it felt like Pittsburgh gained some run game traction when the Pats kind of lost their top guys.
Yeah, true. And, a lot of his yards in the dump-off game came later in the game, or definitely in the second half, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I want to pull up what the Steelers' first down numbers were in this game because it didn't feel like they were that successful on first down, though you did mention some of the Najee numbers, but it felt like they were, just trying to play for third and manageable after failing on first down. And it was good that Matt Canada wasn't running on second and long to turn it into third and long, but it became a lot of second and safe calls, boots and rollouts, try to get 5 yards, put yourself in 3rd and 4 to 5. And so that was kind of the theme that it felt like to me watching it live was first down failures, second down safe call, 3rd and 5, try to convert.
Let's see. They had how many 1st and 10 opportunities in this game? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Oh, that's a 15 there. Hold on a minute here. I'll eliminate that one there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23 1st and 10 opportunities. And we want to see how many successful plays they had that on that. So that'd be anything greater than 4.5. They had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 successful plays.
Okay.
And that includes pass plays.
Gotcha. I just pulled up the numbers league-wide. Pittsburgh against the Patriots on first down Sunday averaged 4.3 yards per play. That was 25th across the NFL this week. Actually, maybe a little bit higher than that because there's games to be played tonight. But 4.3 yards on first down, not where it needs to be.
Right. And once again, I mean, you got to get some chunks, man. I mean, you're trying to nickel and dime, you're way down the field all the time. And if you're not sooner or later, either penalties or something, blown assignment, a bad pass or what have you is going to blow up a drive on you. And this team's just not built to 5-yard people to death.
Right. It's not crisp, efficient the way, and usually you need an elite level quarterback or an elite level run game to do those kinds of things. And right now, Pittsburgh obviously has neither. I think generally speaking, the focus and the quote unquote blame gets looked towards two people from this game in terms of the offense, Mitch Trubisky and Matt Canada. As much as we talk about Trubisky's lack of downfield shots, and I get that, and I want to look at that more on the All-22, I'm more concerned about him taking some bad sacks, missing some reads underneath, some poor mechanics, throwing off his back foot, stuff like that, the bad read on the interception. To me, that's the more fundamental stuff before we start talking about flinging the ball 50 yards downfield. There's some easy, quote-unquote, layups that right now he seems to be missing.
Yeah, negative plays. Mike Tomlin talks about them. And two of those, Mitch Trubisky even said after the game, 2 of those sacks are on me, and they were. You got to do something with the football in that situation. You can't take the sack in those situations there. Even a couple of the passes that he completed on a couple of out routes, they were completed. They were positive plays, but they were him throwing off the back foot.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what he saw on that interception. Because that guy, it wasn't like that guy just magically appeared in the middle of the field there. Certainly a bad read there. There were probably, and once again, I speed watched that all 22 just to see if things would on the offensive side to see if things would stick out to me. There looked like a couple really predetermined throws on his part where I'm going this way. The throw to Najee. There's a mesh route underneath there that looks like Deontay hit him in full stride right there, and it's a first down. And that was a 3rd and 7 or 3rd and 8, right?
Fourth quarter, yeah.
In the fourth quarter, I mean, a very, very key drive in that situation, and you take a lower kind of percentage play in trying to lob that thing up to Najee Harris over there. So and that it just felt like he never even thought about going underneath to the mesh there.
And I think that was the one Deontay got really heated on, correct? I could see it live that I'm pretty sure his body language was.
If I remember, at least on the all 22 end zone view, it looks like he's right after the play. He's calling for the flag.
Oh, really? Okay.
Remember, because that was the one where there was, are they going to call pass interference on that? Maybe I need to go back and look at the TV tape.
Deontay was looking for the flag.
Yeah, on Najee, right?
Okay. All right. At some point, I know they referenced Deontay, and Deontay talked about it being emotional, and he said he thought he was open. I don't know. Maybe he's referring to a different play. I'm not quite sure.
I'm almost and I don't remember seeing that yet. I'll probably see that on like the 8th time through.
You come back like Wednesday late in the show.
Right. I almost wonder if it might be that play that I referenced where he was going down the right sideline and it was a 3rd down play, and I think that was one of the ones that Mitch threw to Freiermuth underneath.
Okay.
I'm not sure. I'm guessing here.
I got you. We'll check back Wednesday. My general thought has been the way that the coaching staff is asking Trubisky to run this offense is just don't make mistakes. Play safe, play conservative. We have a good defense. That's going to be the group we're going to lean on, keep the score down. Don't do things that are going to, potentially wreck the game with turnovers and really negative plays. It's the old take a profit approach. Find the first guy that's open, hit him underneath, and let your skill guys make plays. And that seems to be some of what I'm inferring from what the players are talking about and from what I'm seeing on tape as well. And so not to absolve Trubisky, because again, he's having issues making some of those plays underneath, hitting some of the quote unquote layups and making some negative plays as well. But I think the way the offense is structured, they're just trying to be super conservative, and there's a big cost to that, obviously.
Yeah. The cost is you better be dead solid perfect in that, and be ready to go 13, 14 plays down the field. And I just don't think it's going to have, that's not a way to do it. You're going to have to, look, Mitch has got to start looking at this thing at some point. Like, man, I'm running out of hidden aces here. I got to start taking some chances here. Because everybody knows who's, at some point this team's going to have enough, and they're going to turn to Kenny Pickett, and he's not guaranteed the 2nd year in Pittsburgh right now. Obviously, he's going to have to start, taking some chances and pushing the football down the field more, for several reasons,
Sure.
Because that's the only way they're going to win some games.
It just feels like he's trying to play so within structure, and they're not letting him necessarily play as much outside of structure. And again, the whole focus is just don't make the mistake. And the problem is some of those mistakes are happening, and you need a defense that's playing elite level, and that's harder to do without TJ Watt. And you need special teams to play elite level. And Boz was great, but there's work to be done there. Obviously, the muff punt was a big turning point in this game. So when that's your model, like the margin for error is so thin, because everything else has to be perfect. If you're just kind of playing this conservative, let the defense do its job approach here in 2022.
Now, somebody sent me this, and I don't listen to Charlie Batch after the game or any of that. So someone sent me something, says Charlie says that Mitch doesn't have that, and Roethlisberger either doesn't have the ability to audible out of anything.
Well, I know they did at least once last week. I know Trubisky did, because Dotson missed the call and started pulling on a pass play. So, I mean, I don't know. Again, I think Canada's system is more structured and rigid, and that comes from his time in college. Whenever you got a 20-year-old a quarterback, and you're trying to let him just play within your system. So I'm sure there's some truth to that. But I mean, Trubisky has audible this year.
Okay. And once again, I don't listen to that, but someone was just trying to say that. Are you saying that you think they're telling Mitch to just play it safe?
I mean, it may not be exactly in a direct quote like that, but that's the overall idea of this offense. I think it's pretty clear to argue that they're just trying to, they're leaning on their defense, and their offense has problems. They have growing pains. They want to keep the score down. They want to play close games and try to win late. And to do that, the thought is, let's not make mistakes offensively. Let's not turn the football over. Let's let our defense win. Let's let field position win. Let special teams win. We have a great kicker. I think that's the approach they're taking. Fairly similar to 2019. I'm not saying I agree with that. I'm just saying I think that's what the approach is. I think this offense is more talented than, say, 2019 by a long shot, and winning with that model with a defense that's good, but very good, but not elite, not 2019 level elite, is going to be hard to do consistently, especially in a tougher division, tough AFC North with some really good quarterback play.
Well, I got some things sorted here. I think there was 11 third down pass attempts by Mitch Trubisky in this game. Off the top of your head, out of those 11, what? And I'm not asking you this to. I'm as a gotcha or anything. I want to know what it felt like to you. How many times do you feel like he threw short of the chains?
So spit that back. 11 pass attempts on third down.
Right.
How many short of the chains? I'll say.
How many air yards were short of the chains?
6.
It felt like it, didn't it?
I'm guessing it's not 6 then.
Lower.
4?
Lower.
Really?
Lower.
Your price is right in me here.
Yeah.
2? I don't know.
2.
Really? So
yeah.
There was the hot to Najee in the fourth quarter. They should not have been an empty on that play, because when you go empty against the Patriots, they're going to mug the A gaps and really screw your protection. That was a mistake on Canada, if you ask me. So there was that one. What's the other one?
The other one would have been 3rd and 8 with 6:27 left in the third at the New England 33. What was that?
Yeah, I'd have to.
That ended up being the.
You said 6 something in the third?
Pass short, the dump off over there to Warren.
Oh, that was on the Yankee concept.
Mm-hmm.
When they ran into each other. Okay.
Right.
So, I mean, again, I think there are some narratives that are probably a little bit off in the sense of Trubisky doesn't go deep, because last week they had 8 throws downfield. Now, the question of effectiveness overall is certainly a different story, but I think that is good context to provide.
It felt like it was higher than that. I had to look. I had to make sure I had this thing sorted, sorted right several times there. So now, obviously, like you said, I mean, late in the game, fourth quarter, you definitely don't want that stuff to happen when you need a drive for sure. It's really a give up.
Yeah, I mean, there's an argument to be made about Pat Fryermuth, but I know when you're facing that pressure, I mean, that Judon's coming in free off the edge because the line's pinching down because the A gaps are mugged. They have to respect that. The Patriots played that great. They dropped out on the backside of that. Judon comes free. It's still like a 4-man rush, and they're dropping 7 guys to tackle the catch. So to me, that was just you cannot. I said this, I think, earlier. You cannot be an empty against teams like the Patriots or the Vikings last year, because they will put those guys in the A gap and they will just really wreck your protection. And they weren't an empty much this game. Pittsburgh wasn't, but they were on that play. And to me, that was a very clear and obvious mistake.
All right. What else stuck out offensively in from the, you're just not seeing a whole ton of a lot of Yankee or anything in, deep digs or over routes or anything like that. Now, once again, the Patriots seem to do their best to, once again, play middle of the field safety in part of either cover 1 or cover 3. Steelers didn't do a good job of scheming stuff up, to try to attack that stuff down the field. I mean, really, there's a huge void even from the 10-yard mark on down the field of just no pass attempts going in that area. And I'm not just talking between the hash marks. I'm talking, almost to the numbers, to each side.
Mm-hmm. The one other takeaway I have that's maybe a bit more of a spicier take and thought, and I try to be super, non-knee-jerk reaction coming off a loss, because that's so typical and easy to do. And so this team's 1-1, still leading the AFC North. They beat the Browns on Thursday. Everyone's going to be feeling pretty good about themselves. So I'm not trying to be in that mode. right now off the top, 24 hours removed from a loss. But maybe I'm reading too much into this, and feel free to disagree. It felt like there was a lot of shade being thrown at Matt Canada yesterday with some of the comments made post-game from Trubisky, from Claypool, from Freiermuth. A lot of commentary, a lot of guys who seem unhappy with the way things are being called.
Could be. We're not in there to catch the entire context of it. Mitch did. I mean, it's hard to get around what Mitch said, though, right? I mean, you got to have concepts in the middle of the field.
Right, and that comes on the heels of Canada asked Thursday, why aren't there more throws to the middle of the field? And Canada basically said, well, you got to throw it there to have those plays happen. And you come off the loss, and Trubisky's asked the same question, and he says, there's got to be concepts called there. So you got Canada saying they got to throw it there. Trubisky saying they got to call plays there. That's a clear disagreement, it would seem.
Yeah. And now as far as what other players are saying, it's hard to know, in totality, not hearing the complete question and answer type situation there. Could there be at this point a disconnect with players not being on board with the way Canada is doing things? Absolutely, there could be. I mean, I think maybe some tiny more evidence to that was Trubisky trying to take the leadership role and saying, look, we all just need to continue to buy in. You know?
That's not something you want to hear in week 2 after one loss.
Right. So, maybe that's another indictment of that. So if you're listening to this and saying, man, I sure hope something happens to Canada in the very near future, that's your train ticket, I think.
Sure. And what I base that thought off of are a couple things. The Trubisky comments that you just talked about, that I just talked about, and then Pat Freiermuth saying, and this wasn't necessarily shade, but certainly a critique. He says, quote, we just got to do stuff that we're comfortable with and do stuff that we do more consistently in practice. I think that we're good at certain things, and I think we need to get to those faster. Later asked about how this offense can be more aggressive. He says, quote, I think we just trust our quarterback and trust our guys to go down there and make plays. It's just pretty simple. Just trust each other, which seems to be basically my thought of this offense is being designed and kind of being indirectly told, play it safe, play conservative, take a profit, let the defense do its thing and not be aggressive and not try to make that big play and have that big risk for that big payoff overall. And I have not seen the full context of this. Maybe you have, but I think The Athletic reported there were players arguing about play calls in the huddle. Now, I don't know what the extent is.
We'll never know that,
Right. But I mean, I think Trubisky apparently had said that. I don't recall when or if or how he said that kind of stuff, but those are things that, 2 weeks into a year, they're raising some alarm bells in my mind.
Okay. And we'll see where it goes. I tell you what, nothing's going to happen in this short week.
No, I don't think no one's getting fired or anything like that, but just the overall feel in that locker room. I mean, it's certainly, those are comments that were consistently capturing my attention.
Look, there are some narratives to bust in this, and none of them, absolve Mitch Trubisky, but there are a lot of people saying, "Oh man, there are people running free, wide open all day." That wasn't the case. Now, there, as we highlighted, there are probably a good, 3 or 4 stuck out to me situations where Mitch probably had an opportunity to push the football down the field. And throw guys open, but there was a lot of good coverage in that secondary with the Patriots not wanting to give up, deep over their head, down the field stuff there. So if you see that as an offensive coordinator through a quarter and a half, 2 quarters, then you better start adjusting to it.
Sure. And it is tricky and a delicate line to walk when you talk about quarterback progressions and what their reads are, and just, trying to say, and with the benefit of hindsight and the all 22 view of, just throw it here or just do that or just do this. Coverage dictates a lot, and there's progressions and there's reads. And just because a guy might be open for a moment, depending on what the progression is, the quarterback may not see that. So I try to give grace, and I have not gone through the all 22, so I want to see it myself. I see one clip I just saw on my timeline of Pickens potentially being open on a post, but it's covered one, middle of the field closed, the safety sitting there, and typically if you see that pre-snap, you're not going to look at the post because you're assuming that that free safety is in the middle of the field. That post is not going to be open. You don't throw between the numbers against middle of the field closed. And so those are things to consider that may be easy to talk about with hindsight. But whenever you're actually live in the play, what is the quarterback's read? What is his progression? What coverage is he seeing? What does that tell you in this very structured offense? I think has to be put into really important context.
Yeah, look, and you've got Joe Blow bloggers putting still shots of all 22 up, and you don't see the thing in process. And he's open,
right.
Kind of thing there, and you don't take those other things, those other kind of rules into consideration. Look, it wasn't pretty by Mitch Trubisky's end at all.
No.
At all. But how bad it was lays somewhere in. The truth is somewhere in between in there. You know what I'm saying? Overall, to me, like I said, first blush, it looked like 3 or 4 situations where maybe Mitch should have let it fly.
Right. And I need to go back and see that. So I don't really have a good assessment of what he did or shouldn't have done. I think there's issues with play calls. I think there's issues with Trubisky himself. But again, with me and Trubisky, to me, it's
and what do you do when you have 2 wide receivers in one spot down the field?
Right. Yeah, that's an issue of communication and potentially coaching, but also certainly the players potentially as well. But to me, my bigger concern is on some of the underneath reads, maybe some missed reads and taking those sacks. I mean, there was the play in week 1 that I didn't even talk about that I should have talked about was, instead of just throwing the ball away, Trubisky runs out of bounds and takes a 2-yard loss instead of, just going to 2nd and 10. Those are just little things like that. Had the play, he flushes left side, could have thrown the ball away, takes a, I think, 7-yard sack or something like that. I mean, those are the plays that are concerning me more because they're certainly avoidable and they're not as much of the gray area as I think the idea of, just throw it to the guy downfield may potentially be.
Right. And all this stuff's going to get cleaned up by Thursday.
Yeah, I hope so. I'm not too optimistic about that.
No, I said that it's not.
Oh, it's not. I thought you said it is. Oh. Yeah, I don't think so either. Short week on the road against a pretty good defense as well. That's going to be a tough environment to be in. So, any other just overall offensive thoughts? Again, the line did okay. I think Core Horse had a good start to the year. I think Dan Moore has certainly progressed. James Daniels has gotten better, although, as you pointed out, not entirely sure what happened on that play. He got called for an eligible man down to that was a screen. It felt like, and it just this has been a terrible screen team for so long. And I think that's what it was, but it was even hard to tell what the actual call was.
All right.
Any other thoughts on the offense, Dave?
No, just going to be interested to see how much better it can get.
Yeah. I mean, it was good. And I think Tom made this point on Monday was the third down offense on paper looked a lot better, 4 of 15 last week to 8 of 15 this week. But in the second half, they were 1 of 4 on third down. They just didn't have the ball much in the second half. The fourth quarter, they possessed the ball for 2.5 minutes. I mean, the defense made plays, got the offense the ball back. They went 3 and out twice. And the defense kind of, couldn't finish that one out and got worn down late in the game. Although I'm a little iffy on should we really say that they were worn down at the end of the game. We'll talk about that in a second. But second half, the third down offense went into the tank, and they just did not have the ball really at all when they had a chance to potentially tie or take the lead.
Right. What did they have? 5 possessions in the second half?
I don't know the exact number, but it wasn't many, and they didn't have the ball for long when they did possess the football. It was again fourth quarter. They had 2 drives, right? They had 2 3 and outs.
Oh, they had the ball 4 times in the 4 possessions in the second half of the game.
Oh, wow.
They had 112 net yards of offense on 22 second half plays.
Yeah, and the fourth quarter, I think they possessed the ball for 2 minutes and 41 seconds, I want to say. That was it.
I guess the bright spot in all that is they did have 10 second half points. No, yeah. 11 second half points.
With a 2 point. Yeah, I mean, they had a good drive there on the Freiermuth touchdown, and it was a well-executed drive. They went tempo. They went no huddle. They got some good runs with Gunner. Deontay made a great catch on the 2-point conversion. This guy's making some unbelievable catches this year. Now, I know people will ask, why didn't they go no huddle the rest of the way? They couldn't get anything going. They went 3 and out both times. To go no huddle, you need a completion. You got to get some yards, kind of get some momentum going. They couldn't even do that. So that's why they didn't go no huddle, because they couldn't even get a play to present an opportunity to go no huddle.
The last two possessions, both 3 and outs, they ran 6 plays, 12 net yards.
Yeah. Like I said, I mean, you got to have a completion to get that cycle started. And they threw incomplete on second down that first drive in the fourth quarter. And they threw, I think, complete short on second down the next time. So you got to get that snowball going to really start using no huddle.
All right.
Defensively in this one, I mean, obviously, I think it was a good performance overall. Still things to work on and clean up. I'm trying to feel exactly. I'm trying to detail exactly how I feel about the defensive performance in this game. There was some good, there was some bad. I think maybe there was a little bit more bad than people think. But obviously, the issue for this game was offense. It was special teams. His defense ultimately held New England to just 17 points, and they got put in a bad spot on that Noshevsky muff punt. I mean, they did enough to win that game, obviously.
Right, and you've had to go through the defensive side more than I have, because you obviously have charted the game already. What were the major things that stuck out on that side of the ball? I mean, obviously we saw DeMarvin Leal. What did he play? 16 snaps or something like that, and I think nearly all of them he was standing up on his feet. Yeah,
they ran 3-3-5 almost 60% of the time in this game, and we talked about could they show some of that without T.J. Watt to mitigate some of the outside linebacker depth or lack thereof and lean on some of the strong defensive line depth they have. And they opened the game in that 3-3-5, and they had Leal playing a little bit of handout, but also certainly with his handout, it's kind of that rush end as well. How effective was it? Remains, we could talk about that probably a little bit, but it was a wrinkle that I think we'll probably see more of going forward. Obviously, the elephant in the room on the negative side was the lack of a pass rush, no sacks, 3 quarterback hits on Mac Jones. I mean, it's obvious to say, but the difference whenever you have TJ Watt versus when you don't have TJ Watt could not be any more clear.
Absolutely. It did seem like, and didn't they have to start blitzing more as the game went on?
They didn't actually blitz all that much. I went through the charting 25% of the time in this game, and I don't know if that picked up a lot more in the second half. Obviously, the Patriots started running the ball pretty effectively late in that game, but the blitz rate, the 5-man rush rate was a bit higher, but the blitz rate was still maybe a tick higher, but not incredibly so.
And what did we talk about just recently? Boy, all this time has been nice to be able to get that 4-man. Use 4-man rushes and be able to get the pressure there. Yep. And they obviously, I mean, I think Malik Reed did a couple of nice things, and he drew a hold call for sure on one of those there. I think he had a nice inside rush on there, but they're nobody's going to replace TJ Watt, over there, on that side. And I thought, they did try to move Highsmith around a little bit there. Boy, Cole Strange had a hell of a game, didn't he?
Yeah, and I knew, or at least I figured they would give Hayward more attention, but even just one-on-one, Strange did a really nice job against Hayward.
And that was one of my keys to the game. Yeah. Can he school a rookie 2 weeks in a row,
Right, and that did not happen. I mean, Hayward had a couple of plays in the run game, but the pass rush was really minimal overall. I mean, that was, the same story for this entire team. I thought Alex Highsmith had a pretty good game overall, even without some of the, gaudy sack numbers that he had in week 1. But they still ran a lot of 4-man pressure, and the pressure really didn't get home, and a lot of clean pockets, even though the Witherspoon finish on that touchdown was a really bad play by him. I mean, look at that pocket for Mac Jones. It is perfectly clear, and he can step up and sling that ball, and that was the theme of the day.
Yeah, and, you get into, and it wasn't necessarily the turning point in the game, but when you allow them to run, 6:33 off the clock, run the game out with 6:33 on the clock. I mean, there's been situations where it'd been great to see the Steelers do that, right?
It's been a while, but
over the years and all,
sure.
Like that. But when they needed to, they ran a lot more kind of gap type running. What, they have one crack toss in this game?
Yeah, they didn't do like any pulling or crack tosses until that last drive. And the Patriots started the game with a 13-play drive. They ended the game with a 13-play drive. And they started running gap schemes and crack tosses. And what Pittsburgh did very late on that drive that where New England picked up the final first down to salt the game away, Pittsburgh was running its over front and the Patriots running away from the over, but also pulling guys. So they were getting numbers back on their side with the pullers, but they were running weak side away from the over front and they were reaching guys and cutting people off. And I thought schematically, Pittsburgh should have bailed out of that over front because the Patriots were simply doing the smart thing, what the Lions did last year, running away from the over front.
So they really got out coached in that fourth quarter.
I think so. If you think about the Damian Harris touchdown, which again, the muff punt, that's the main issue there. But check out the personnel Pittsburgh's in on that play. They're in their 3-3-5. They have 3 corners on the field against 1 wide receiver against 22 personnel. I mean, and the Patriots had subbed the play before, and so the defense has an opportunity to sub and match that, and they did change out personnel. So I don't know what the decision was there. That's what I talk about. I'm a little mixed on this game. To the last drive, I understand people will say, well, the offense went 3 and out. His defense was tired. The defense didn't get stops. That makes yourself tired. And listen, whenever the Patriots got that ball on that last drive, the Steelers had run more plays than the Patriots at that point. Time of possession was just about even to that point. And so I kind of get the tired argument because the offense kept going 3 and out, but I kind of don't as well because this was not the Bengals game where they're running 100 plays and they're having 40 minutes time of possession. It was pretty much 50-50 in terms of play count and TOP heading into that final drive, and Pittsburgh just got ran on.
Right. I would agree. And look, overall, though, the defense, I think, held their own. Once again, if you hold a team to 17 points in
Sure.
an NFL game, you should win. They gave up 3 explosive plays, I think, in this game. One of those obviously being the 44-yard touchdown to Aguilar over Witherspoon. But if they would have had some help on the other side of football, for sure, might be singing a different tune.
Yeah, again, I know the defense was certainly not the central reason why this team lost. It was they played a good game overall, but I don't want to turn my brain off just because the offense was so bad and say the defense can't be held accountable for their mistakes and their errors. And that's some of that's coaching. It's not just personnel, but again, zero. Throughout the entire game, we're talking about no pressure, no sacks, 3 quarterback hits. And so all those things were problems in this game. So again, defense, not the low on the list of concerns, but they had their problems in this game as well.
And look, this wasn't a Patriots offense that's going to go down in the annals.
Yeah, it's not Brady and Moss and all those guys. Sure.
For sure.
I do have to talk about my favorite play call I think I've ever seen before, and probably the best we're going to see all year on that Minkah Fitzpatrick interception. I broke the article or the play down in an article this morning on Steelers Depot. Please check it out. It is just, it's hard to explain just talking podcast on audio, but it was such a good concept. They kind of built this play off their nickel blitz that Millette had last week to help beat the Bengals. And they run a coffee house stunt with Alex Highsmith faking like he's going to drop into coverage and then rushing. I mean, it was just so well done. It was, that I don't know who gets credit for that. And that's Austin Flores or who, but that was an incredible play call. And
we don't see them run the coffee house much, right? In fact, I think really the last time I really remember it was maybe a run against them against the Raiders last year in week 2.
Yeah, the Raiders did it last year. Some about week 2, I guess. Turns out brings up the coffee house. You don't see that often in the NFL in general, especially from an outside guy. Usually you see more interior guys do that, inside linebackers, things like that. But to see it from Highsmith was really, really cool. So it was just, it totally fooled the Patriots. And Minkah, of course, made a fantastic play to pick that one off.
He did, indeed. What's interesting, too, about that play, kind of a side note to that, is why does Mac Jones, the concept worked good on the other side. He had a receiver underneath there if he wanted him.
Okay, I hadn't even seen the All-22 or hadn't really paid attention to that. Spillane's trying to carry a receiver downfield. And so
that's a matchup that you like. Want. Yeah.
Right. But the pressure helped force a throw more to the outside, and Minkah, despite covering kind of deep half, able to come over and make that play.
Right.
Again, I think the defense was good. I want to be very clear about that. I'm sure I'm going to get a lot of hate mail. Alex, you're bashing the defense too much. My Twitter mentions are a mess about that anytime you recognize any sort of ills the defense had in this game. Offense primary concern, but defensively there were some things to work on.
Right. I agree.
And then to the more central idea of how do you generate a pass rush until TJ Watt comes back, because he will come back. It ain't going to be for a while. How do you get a pass rush until he returns? I don't know.
You're going to have to start probably manufacturing some with some blitz of some sort.
Right. And that's going to present issues in terms of your coverage, one-on-one.
And if you don't get home, what happens? Yeah.
Right. I thought there was very much a soft zone scheme that Pittsburgh employed in this game. They struggled in man, some of the over routes, the deep ball to Aguilar. I think Pittsburgh's just they play a lot of too high. They're playing a lot of zone more than they have in the past. And that's kind of been their identity to start the year.
What did you think about Leal's play overall on the edge?
I thought he was fine. Had that good tip pass on that. I think it was an RPO or a little, swing pass. To be versatile, to play with his hand up. I mean, he's a guy that's a good athlete overall, good motor. I don't know, how good he was against the run yet. I haven't watched those plays, but I thought he did well.
Okay.
Malik Reed, watching it back, you're right. I think he was a bit better than I initially thought, but it's a tough spot for him to try to come in and replace TJ Watt. Obviously, he's not going to be TJ Watt, but he's just not a guy that's going to win all that early and all that consistently.
Yeah, and looking at the snaps in totality there, Reed played 45. Leal played 16 in total. Delonte Scott, who was elevated on Saturday from the practice squad, played 7. This is how much faith they have in those backup guys there.
Yep.
Delonte Scott played 7 defensive snaps. Jameer Jones played 6.
Which is smart. I don't want to play those guys more than I have to. So I think it's a smart approach to lean on the depth of the defensive line, not ask these backup backers to try to play that much, but still the results have not quite been there.
Right. This team's going to, unless you get guys winning inside there like Hayward and Ogunjobi and, occasionally Highsmith, going to probably have to come up with some ways to scheme up some pressure here.
And they did that on that Fitzpatrick interception. But if the only way to generate pressure is to come up with like the best chess move play calls, that's hard to do consistently, And so that's the worry. How does this team pressure Jacoby Brissett Thursday night? I mean, I don't know what the state of the Browns tackles are. Conklin's missed some time, but they got a good offensive line. And can you get some pressure is going to be the concern.
Okay. Special teams, obviously the Gunnar Olszewski fumble sticks out like a sore thumb. Miles Boykin, that guy's an all-pro gunner, isn't he?
Yeah, I mean, he had a great, I think, kick coverage tackle as well. He overran, I think, one punt, the 53-yarder that Harvin had. There was some bad net on that, unfortunately. But, I mean, Boykin's been good. I mean, Boz is excellent. Harvin had that great 69-yard punt on that first possession. I mean, what happens if Pittsburgh falls on that football? I mean, that's a touchdown, right? I mean, they would have ruled that a touchdown if Pittsburgh fell on it, right?
Yeah.
If it hits his hands.
There's some weird ruling on that, I guess. I had to go back and look at that. My first thought was that was a safety, but
right, he didn't technically possess the football.
Right.
But it's a live ball at that point, right?
I don't like the rule, but anyway.
Yeah, but it was a great punt either way.
Probably because I don't fully understand the rule.
And then the 53-yarder, which was great placement as well. There was some bad net on that. The 39-yarder that Harvin had, that was a big spot. You're hoping for a better punt there, but progress being made. Kicking game was good. Kick coverage, a little mixed bag, but obviously the whole talking point of the day is the muff punt. And then, I'm not sure what jammer was missed. I have to go back and check. I have not gone through the tape yet, but 10 men out there. Again, you got to catch that either way, whether the guy's free or not. But that's an error on top of errors.
Agreed.
Not super penalized. This team not super penalized. I think that was one positive thing. But you got to be perfect to try to win these games. And Pittsburgh not perfect. And again, top of the show, talked about not winning that last 10%. And it went to New England. And that's the story of the game.
Yeah, I mean, if that's the way your offense is going to be, like we did say at the top of the show, your defense and your special teams got to be almost perfect. Right.
So quick turnaround, though. It's not a lot of time to lick your wounds and sulk. You got a big road game against the AFC North Cleveland Browns, who are coming off a terrible loss of themselves. They're trying to rebound after blowing a 13-point lead with 2 minutes left against the Jets and Joe Flacco. So both teams really hungry for a win on Thursday.
Yeah, another AFC North look. I guess if there's a positive side to any of this, is that the other three teams not only lost on Sunday, but lost late too.
Right. I couldn't believe the Ravens blew that game. I mean, I wasn't even paying attention. I tweeted about how the Ravens and the Browns are going to be 2-0, and I realized, oh my God, both those teams have come back, and the Bengals lose to the Cowboys. I mean, they lose to Cooper Rush. So every AFC North team is hurting. And again, Steelers are technically in first place right now.
Right.
And if you beat the Browns on Thursday, like this whole doom and gloom stops. You're 2-1. You're 2-0 in the North. You're in first place. Just get a win on Thursday.
It just gets micro analyzed in
Sure.
that, well, we won or they won and Trubisky still sucks and Canada still sucks. It just gets diminished down to just fewer people.
Right. It's always tough after a loss. I mean, it was, there's critique and there's certainly, right for criticism, but it's a long season. We're in week 2. I'm upset about the loss. There are certainly concerns long term. How do you get a pass rush? How does your offense get on track? But it is one loss. I mean, I think I don't want to start firing people the way that Twitter wants to right now.
And here's the thing. If they're going to make the playoffs, it's going to be because they go 4-2 or better in the division for starters.
Yeah, 100%.
100%. So these games are easily magnified. They surprised a lot of people, me myself included, by beating the Bengals out of the chute there. They get another AFC North team coming off of a kind of a disgusting loss to the Jets, and without obviously their top quarterback on a short week. They're not going to have Jadeveon Clowney, which is a pretty big development in that game. They're not going to have even one of their other backups edge rushers either, right?
Right. Chase Winovich.
Yeah, Chase Winovich is out for that game there. So it's already kind of leaning, at least on the injury side of the ledger, in the Steelers' favor there, and obviously going to Cleveland's going to be a tough chore, but they have a short week just like the Steelers do.
Right. As you said, every AFC North team is disgusted with themselves, asking, how did we lose that game? Literally every team is asking, how did we lose that game? And the Steelers are probably the least egregious example of the 4. And this is your last chance to play AFC North ball until week 11. So this is a big opportunity here to get that win on the road, to be 2-0 in the North, to be 2-1 on the season. It's a huge game on Thursday.
All right. What else did Tomlin say before we get to emails? Devin Bush expected to practice on Tuesday. The Steelers will have to release an injury report later today on Monday, but it will just be one of those estimated ones. So there's probably going to be probably 3 or 4 guys in there that, either with minor injuries or coach's decision, kind of thing like that. And I think the big determiner will be what Tuesday's injury report looks like.
Yeah, exactly. So take today's with a grain of salt, but it sounds like Bush is okay with that ankle injury.
And he played well. I tried to look for the injury last night. I couldn't find it. He played pretty well into the fourth quarter of that game, and I couldn't find out. I couldn't see where he may have hurt that foot.
I think it was very late. I don't know exactly when, but I'm pretty sure it was on that final drive.
All right. Anything else from Tomlin or any other players today that stuck out to you? You guys mostly wrote that stuff up.
Yeah, that was about it from Tomlin. I think he kept things pretty general, pretty vague. I mean, he said some good things about Trubisky when it comes to his leadership and intangibles. Didn't talk about his on-field play, but talked about how he likes the intangibles and some of the non-directly football-related type stuff.
All right. Shall we get to emails?
Yep, let's get to reader emails and close out today's show.
Put your seatbelt on.
Oh, boy.
All right. Brandon Hatcher, greetings. Dave, Alex, and the whole Depot team. I realized today after nursing my Steelers woes that I like listening to all the post-loss media after a loss. However, it was all the same shallow crap, so I turned it off. Now I'm just waiting for the podcast and post online. Seriously love the quality and genuineness of the site. Well, thank you for that. Anyway, in my wallow, I stared checking out the other media on Channel 7 YouTube canal, the Bigger Than Ben series, and loved it. Made me appreciate the man and his journey, especially his faith, family, and friends. Makes the journey relatable to all of us who went through the day, who go through daily changes and want to be better to our circle. Questions: have you checked out Channel 7's content, and what do you think? I'm assuming he's talking about the all the Ben Roethlisberger stuff. I thought the stuff last season really, really well produced. And as far as the podcast, yeah, we listened to all the podcasts. This, Ben's new podcast. I assume that's what he's talking about. Is it called?
Yeah, so the YouTube channel is called Channel 7. Yeah.
Okay. All right. We listened to all that. They're mostly sitting around tasting beers and wine or whatnot, I guess. What a job. I did that and never got paid for it when I was younger. Yeah, I mean, I think for what it is, he does a good job, in that podcast. He obviously comments. Going to be interesting to hear Ben's thoughts on what happened this past. I think he was at the game, at least. Some of his family I know was, because it showed up on their Twitter feed. Has Dr. Mel wrote her thoughts on the uniqueness of the injury. I think the doctor who performed the surgery said he has never had such a serious repair in a pro athlete. Yeah, Mel wrote about Ben's surgery and all last season quite a bit, didn't she?
Yeah, I'm sure she's touched on it throughout his time that he was hurt initially and recovery, and she's been with us for a long time. So I don't remember anything specifically, but I know that she has written about it.
Yeah, Brandon, just do a search on the site for The Doctor Is In, and you can quickly go to all of her articles. Should come up on there and go back and find a couple that she did on Ben and all like that. And that's Brandon, South Carolina transplant from Chicago. Let's see here. This one's from Mark Chapman. This is the one I referenced. Says on the Steelers post-game radio show, Charlie Batch is basically laughing at everyone who blamed Ben for the offensive struggles last year, and he doubled down on the statement that the quarterback is not allowed to audible in Canada's system. Maybe that's a question the media should ask Canada on, I guess this week would be Wednesday, right? Would be the Matt Canada session, or would that be Tuesday? I don't know.
Who knows? I mean, even if we accept that premise and that he can't audible, there's still reads and things you can do within the play that, quarterback can't control. So, but again, I think there's probably a kernel of truth to that in terms of it's a more rigid, structured offense, or better for worse right now for worse. But I go check that Bengals game. They check the play where Kevin Dotson pulls. I mean, Trubisky audible on that play.
All right, this one's from Jay. Thoughts on Tyson Adewalu's performance? More of a question for the next podcast after you guys review the all 22. I have not cracked the what'd you see out of Tyson even on the TV on the charting, Alex?
It looked okay. I really wasn't looking to evaluate performance when I try to just go through. I don't even really watch the play unless it's a pass play. Run plays, I kind of cycle through pretty quickly. But he's healthy. He's looked fine. They barely run any base defense the first two games because the Bengals and Patriots played pretty heavily 11 personnel. They obviously did a lot of 3-3-5 in this game, but it's a little bit differently structured than your base 3-4. But I think he's been fine.
Keaton Prince writes in, driving home from Pittsburgh this morning, hearing the local good radio guys continue on about the whole Kenny Pickett debacle. Of course, everyone at the game was clamoring for Kenny Pickett after Mitch had one bad play, but why isn't anyone talking about our O-line play or Gunner dropping the punt? He says, I get that Mitch isn't the best, but man, these fans or radio turds seem to think that Kenny Pickett is the answer right now, while seemingly forgetting how bad the line play calling has been. What's your thoughts on the whole quarterback thing? It's already annoying, and it's only going on week 3. Look, it's predicted. And it's going to stay that way until Kenny hits the field. You're going to have fans with the Kenny chants every game. You're going to have the radio and the media guys all clamoring for Mitch to be benched and Matt Canada to be fired. And I mean, we just try to break down the games, man. At some point, they will pull the plug on Mitch. All I can tell you is at some point this season, they will pull the plug on Mitch and Kenny Pickett will start. I still think that's more likely to happen probably the game after the bye week. I suppose some people are saying, well, what happens if they lose to Cleveland and once again, the offense scores 10, 12, 13, 14 points. I mean, I suppose because you got a little bit extra time in there to get them ready, but I would be surprised the way Mike Tomlin's talking right now, even after this game. I would be surprised if there's a change, no matter how bad it is after the Cleveland game. We try to focus on the football aspect of it. And, if us clamoring for Canada to get fired or Mitch to get benched right now isn't all it's going to do is just color at this point.
Yeah, I'm just focused. I'm just trying to process the loss and see exactly what happened. Like, that's my first step before I got to watch a tape before I talk about any suggestion about any sort of change that should be made. But as I said before, Tomlin's going to have more patience and a longer leash on Trubisky than anyone thinks. I think it could still be a while before Trubisky were to get pulled. Do I think Pickett plays this year? Yes, I do. But I think it's going to be a lot longer than people think, because as long as his team's competitive, and they still are, again, they're literally leading the North right now, and Trubisky's not playing abysmally, like throwing 4 interceptions and those kinds of things, Tomlin's going to stick with Mitch Trubisky.
Agreed. Chandler Stroud writes, and unfortunately, guys, we won't be saying Happy Victory Monday, but I kind of want to quickly address some comments made by Trubisky and overall quarterback status. I'm so few words. Trubisky kind of hinted in his post-game presser that guys kind of needed to do their own jobs, and also obviously that the team needed to call concepts to get guys in the middle of the field in order to produce those plays. He says, now granted, like Dave has said for weeks now, I don't see this happening super soon or even relatively soon for that matter, but what's the overall thought on this situation? I think we covered a lot of that, Chandler, earlier in this show. He says, I know 20 years ago it might have been slightly different, but now being in the social media heavy world, is there any chance the quarterback change happens sooner than we may expect? I know they're going to try to delay this as long as possible, but along with the Kenny chance, how long can this goes on? Once again, you guys in the whole SD crew are absolutely killing it. Produce the best Steelers content there is, hands down. Thanks for that, Chandler. Mike, I don't see how. I don't blame Mike Tomlin when he said he had a Kenny chance, but
right.
People's reactions on social media and this podcast and radio shows isn't going to play into Mike Tomlin deciding to pull the plug on the quarterback. He's going to pull He's going to pull the plug on the quarterback when he thinks he needs to pull the plug on the quarterback.
Right. I mean, he's been this team's coach since 2007. He's not going to be bothered or fazed by anything any media, myself included, or fan has to say. Again, I do think with Canada, there is something there hearing these comments. And obviously when you lose, there's more frustration. This offense has struggled for quite some time now. But hearing those comments to me was more telling than anything about Trubisky.
Okay, agreed. David Ox from Lee Greenspan. Thanks for the great coverage as always. Just a quick question. When we need to use timeouts to preserve time, why does Tomlin always use his timeouts after the 2-minute warning? If he uses them before the 2-minute warning, it saves the time it takes to run the plays. He let 11 seconds run off the clock with 2 timeouts. Didn't matter this game since we couldn't stop the run and they got the first down, so no one will talk about it, but it's really bad time management as usual. Do you have any reasoning on this or any thoughts? I haven't gotten into my, game. When, what down was it when Tomlin, let's see, it was a 1st and 10 and at 2:23 on the Steelers 43 was when Harris ran for 16 yards over to the left side there. So I assume he was down, I guess he's saying about 16 to around 2:16. And I guess he's asking why not call a timeout there. Now that would have been their second timeout there. They had already used they had 2 timeouts left at the 2-minute warning. So I think what Mike Tomlin wanted to do, do you want to, I guess you could use the timeout on that side of the 2-minute warning, but you only have one left, right? I mean, so they, let's say they ended up running off right guard for a negative gain on 1st and 10. So you save let's say 16 seconds there. And then let's say it's 2nd and 12 after the 2-minute warning. Then you use the timeout. I get it. I guess it's 6-1, half a dozen the other. And as he said, it didn't matter because they ran out the rest of the time. But I suppose it's a great question of why didn't he use the timeout at, I guess it's 2:16 instead of on the other side of the 2-minute warning.
I haven't done the math. I think what the reader's saying is you would save more time by calling the timeout ahead as opposed to letting all that the 16 or so seconds run down to the 2-minute warning and then call it on the other side. So I have not done the math. Assuming that's true, good question. Don't have a good answer.
You'd probably still give up the same amount of time though, because at least you had the 2-minute that guaranteed that the clock would be stopped after 16 seconds. And that would have been your second timeout. How much time would have ran off after the 1st and 10 play after the 2-minute warning? You would have used your third timeout there.
And then 40 seconds come off after
2nd and 12, right?
After you burn that last timeout, to another play, then 40 seconds come off. So I'm not sure if the math works. Maybe it does. I'm not a math guy, so I don't know. I'd have to work the scenario out. So I don't have a good answer.
Yeah, I don't either. I have to go back and actually look at the clock running and all like that. Lenny writes in, David Knox, at this point with how Mitch has played, don't you think we would have been better off just letting Mason be our starting quarterback? We could have used that money to sign a better offensive lineman. I don't see why there was in such a hurry to sign him. I believe they signed him on day one of free agency. He says, I think Kenny should continue to sit, but if there's a change at the position, I would rather it be Mason. Well, the reason you sign him like you did is you knew that you needed an experienced quarterback. B, there was no guarantee you're going to get the quarterback that you one of however many that you wanted when you got him in the draft. And I guess the additional part of that is the first year cap hit and all that on Mitch.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to go through all the revisionist history of could have done this, could have done that. I mean, they wanted a veteran quarterback. Mason was not the answer. I mean, I wasn't somebody who was enthused about signing Trubisky. I think both of us were pretty not really loving that selection there. But there really was no great choice of a great veteran quarterback to go out there and sign. So I'm not going to go back and think about all the moves that they could have made.
I mean, you're talking about his cap hit this year is $3.66 million. You know,
right?
I mean, what were you really going to go do with that? You know?
Yeah, that's a fair point.
As far as Mason, Mike Tomlin would be stepping all over himself at this point if Mason starts a game ahead of Kenny Pickett.
Yeah, if they're going to make a change, it's going to be Pickett. But I guess they're saying shouldn't have even signed Trubisky and then just let Rudolph be the veteran starter in week one and use that money elsewhere. I guess it's the time machine that the reader wants us to go down.
Right. If they go to Mason now at this point, it makes you wonder then why wasn't Mason the second string quarterback?
Right. Yeah. Again, if they make a change, it will be Kenny Pickett.
Ugh as in ugly from Jeff Berg. Hello, fellas. Couple things I'm wondering about. Does Mitch seem to throw too often off his back foot? There are quite a few instances of that, Jeff. Number two, do we hold the record for most first down runs of 0 to 2 yards and the most third and long passes for 0 to 2 yards? LOL. Number three, but hey, we're the division leader. So some quick shots from Jeff there. John DeStefano, David Knox, do you think the Steelers are living in their fears? What's the worry about putting Kenny out there? I don't understand in 2022 need to make our first round draft pick sit the bench. That seems like a data philosophy to me. Your thoughts? Well, they want to go with, as Mike Tomlin has said, they want the experienced guy right now out there in Mitch Trubisky, while Kenny Pickett continues to learn a little bit more.
I mean, I'm not going to talk about it every single week, but everybody knows I was in favor of starting Kenny Pickett week one. Experience is good. It has value. The only way to gain experience is by playing, by doing. You play the best guy. To me, that's Pickett. But I understand that they're going to go with Trubisky, and they're going to stick with Trubisky longer than what people want.
Kane 22 writes, and I guess I know the answer to this, but is there any chance they fire Canada mid-season, like after they lose to the Browns on a short week? Seems like a good time. I thought it was Ben last year, and Canada would be calling the plays he wanted to now. Nothing has changed. I see Mitch just threw him under the bus. Charlie Batch said in his postgame that the quarterback isn't allowed to check out the play at the line. If that's the case, Canada needs to go. He says, love you guys on the podcast. It was always something to look forward to in the last couple of years of craziness. Hope the back is feeling better. Yeah, I'm having a hell of a time there. I ain't never gone through anything like this before. I've had cluster headaches and I've had a whole bunch of ailments through my life. This happened over 4 weeks ago, tying my damn shoe. And now I have to walk with a cane. So keep praying for me.
Sure.
Cosmo Moore writes in, hi, Dave and I. It's clearly our lack of attacking the middle of the field the last 2 years wasn't a Ben thing. Why so many throws to the sideline? Are we taking what they give us? Is it our scheme? Are the receivers running the inside routes, not getting open? Cosmo, I think we talked a lot about all this. Right now at this point, they're not running a lot of concepts to the middle of the field. How much is coverage playing into that? Do they need to do a better job of knowing that they're probably likely going to see middle of the field safeties and do a better job, maybe, attacking the seams? Where's that slot fade at, Alex? Dial some of that up for me.
Sure. I hear you on that. To the last question about Canada being fired mid-season, very unlikely. I mean, if there's truly like a mutiny almost, then maybe, but that's what it would take. As for this, I got to go back and try to really watch the tape to dial in what the main issues are.
All right, one last one from Zach Mandel writes in, hey there, Dave and I, it's a pregame email for postgame podcast might prove underwhelming, but anyway, when players like Delonte Scott this week are elevated from the practice squad to the active roster, does the player's paycheck for the week also get elevated from their normal practice squad check? I think the short answer to that is yes. If so, though, I'm sure the difference is minor from a team perspective, not a player perspective. Seems like all the more the reason to have an in-season salary cap cushion. Yeah, look, that's why when I try to budget this thing, and I've taken hell for this last couple of years. The MO has been on them to go into the season around $9 million because of these elevations now, because you want to make sure you have in-season room, and for maybe any more expensive type of signings, and on top of it, you can carry over your unused cap money. So and you probably don't want to bother. The Steelers hate doing any kind of in-season contract manipulation whatsoever, even if it is just something as a putting you John Hancock on a restructure, that kind. I just don't think that they like doing that kind of stuff there. So that it just seems like now that's going to be the kind of thing that they do in keeping around, at least right now. It might go up to around 10 million next year because of the escalation of the minimum salaries and all like that. But short answer is a guy gets promoted to the active inactive roster, he gets paid the minimum for that.
Yeah, and we'll see if any elevations come. We'll see if how do you say his last name? Anini is ready to go, or if Scott gets promoted again.
Yeah, that was a big sign. That's why I waited around for my inactive predictions, just in case something crazy like that happened there, and it ended up being a minor surprise that Delonte Scott got elevated, but not too much, being as how Anini was a new addition and all.
Right. So we'll see what happens on Thursday. It's a pretty quick turnaround, so maybe Scott coming up again.
Boy, we got a lot of work to do, don't we?
Mm-hmm,
we got to wrap up this game. You and I will be back on Wednesday. We'll try to get our buddy from the Browns on to preview this game. We got to get all the breakdowns done. We got a lot to do there. So within that, you can follow me on Twitter at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex on Twitter at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do, want to donate, SteelersDepot.com. Hit the donate button. Also, if you like an ad-free version of the site, SteelersDepot.com. Hit the ad-free button up right navigational bar. Until Wednesday, good job, Alex. I can't wait to watch all this 22, and we'll get some additional thoughts on the game on Wednesday, and do a quick look ahead to the Thursday night game as well too. So as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.